This is very important video, and here we are going to use the important NestJS testing feature createMock. So in the last video we have already done the testing of HTTP service by creating a simple mock object. Now in this video we are going to see how can we use createMock instead of creating our own mock version. CreateMock is a method from the library, and another scenario is, let's say we have a service which has a 10 dependencies. Then instead of writing the 10 different mock object, 10 different mock providers for those services, how can we fix it just by using useMock or createMock? That is the important aspect, and these features are being used after NestJS 8.x. So this part we have already done. Like we have this NestJS service which was talking to a service which was actually talking to the HTTP APIs and returning the observable. So we have to write the mock. We have to mock the HTTP service, and though the mock interface was also returning the observable. Okay, now the next thing, the part 2 of this is we are going to talk about the same kind of example. Here we are accessing the Pokemon API using Axios, and it is returning promises. So how can we mock it? We are going to use this createMock auto mock utility, which is provided by NestJS, and it is simplifying the mocking process with the complete TypeScript definition. So that is really important, and this is how we are mocking these days. So this is my simple service. If I show you, this is Pokemon service. It has a get Pokemon method which is checking the ID and throwing bad request exception, and then here it is making a Axios call. It is not using observable. If you do Axios HTTP service.get, then it is returning observable. But if you want to do it in the way of promise, then use the Axios reference and then define your method and a URL. So this is like if you don't want to use observables and return the promise, and then you can use async await, then in that case you can just use Axios reference, and then it will work in like your old way of dealing with the promises. And if the data is there, then we are returning data.species.name. So this is the actual API call, right? It is making this mock API. It's like a dummy API available online to get the Pokemon data. Here we are going to test this. So we can test the get Pokemon by passing the wrong IDs. It should return bad request exception. We can also test another thing like, okay, it is returning data but the name property is not there, so it will return internal server exception. And we can check the mock, like when you are calling it, we will mock the HTTP interface.get, then only it should be able to resolve this API call. Okay, let's write the test for it. So this is the library we are going to use to create a mock. Level up Jest. It is a special package that is designed to create a test for guard, interceptors and filters, and it really works in simplified way. It creates the mock with the whole TypeScript definitions. Like if you are creating a mock of HTTP service, you should be able to get all the type definitions under the hood, so you can do everything. So here, these are the examples, but we will see the real thing in the code. So here what we are doing is, we have testing module, we have Pokemon service. So I'm trying to override the implementation of HTTP service. This is how we have done in the last video. Like here, I will try to open the cat spec. This is what we have done, right? HTTP service and use value. I explicitly created a mock version of this HTTP service. So when you do HTTP service.get, put, post, they were replaced with these just mock functions. But what is the other way? Other way is simplifying the testing like this. Here you can just call the createMock and provide the HTTP service. So here I didn't define, okay, HTTP service has a get, put, post, delete, patch methods. Under the hood, this createMock utility will be able to handle all the mocking of all the methods defined inside HTTP service. Like here we can see get, put, post, delete, patch, all the HTTP verbs, right? All will be mocked. So this is the only change we have done from our previous implementation for mocking this HTTP service. Now you got the Pokemon service and HTTP service. Now we can write the rest of the tests. So by doing this, what the advantage you see here? Now let's say I got the service instance and I'm calling get Pokemon. This is service and I'm calling get Pokemon method. So in this, while doing this, I don't need to really mock the HTTP service.get method, right? Because that is already happening when I'm using createMock. So HTTP service has already been replaced by the mock version. So here Pokemon service.get Pokemon 0. For this particular case, obviously it will throw an exception, right? Because you are passing the ID 0. And we already know that if ID is less than 0 and 1, it will throw an error. Now the second test case. So here we will also mock the second example. Can be very simple. Here we will just increase the value to 152, right? Then it will throw an error. Now let's try to write the test case where we are mocking the actual service. Partner ID is good and access APIs. Okay, get Pokemon, let's say I'm passing ID 1. What should really happens here? I need to create a mock. So what I can do is http service.axios reference. So here this axios reference is available because I am using createMock. Mock return value once, and this is what we are returning. And what it should return, actually the same thing, data, headers, config object and all. So let me see this. So here we are calling just axios reference mock return value once, and we are returning this data. Now we can call the Pokemon service.get Pokemon. This is we did the mock, and now we are calling the actual method. Now we just need to compare that whatever we have specified the value inside a mock, the name is a Bulbasaur, is it coming after calling the get Pokemon or not? Because this method is returning the Pokemon name, right? So just compare if Pokemon name is coming, get Pokemon result to be Bulbasaur. So if I just try to change it and try to run the test, the thing is, let's say another test which are simple, axios reference mock return value once, this get Pokemon 1, and here we are calling 1. This is unexpected data. So in that case, what should happen? Because data is not an object, it should throw here data is not an object, data.species won't be there, so it would throw internal server exception. So I think we are just checking when it is rejecting it, the instance should be of internal server exception, right? So the basic tests we are doing in the same way, but here we have changed how we are mocking using createMock. So the important aspect here is this HTTP service is of type deep mock. Deep mock is just a type exposed so that this HTTP service instance can also have all the type definitions which are required for HTTP service. So we are doing HTTP service.axios reference. All the types are available. So it is easy for developers to navigate in the properties. Now this is createMock. What is useMock? What is useMock and AutoMock? That we can check here in this spec. Let's say if this Pokemon service is dependent on is using 10 different services. So let's say this is the scenario. Pokemon service is using the cache service, Elasticsearch service, or maybe any kind of search service. Then how your tests would look like? At the end you would be doing something like this. And here you will call service 1. The actual service is cache service, and create mock of that cache service. Then here it is ELK service. Same as you will be keep repeating this thing to have all the mock versions of the dependencies which are added in the Pokemon service. How can we get rid of this? This is one way of doing it, but if there is a 10 different dependencies, then it's too much for the tests. So another special way of doing it is useMocker. What useMocker utility is doing is it is mocking all the dependencies which has been added. So here in this test, I'm not explicitly defining the mocking of HTTP service. I just said providers and useMocker. So what useMocker will do? useMocker will create a createMock of all the dependencies which are there for Pokemon service. So it's a really nice and beautiful utility that is giving me the mock implementation of all the services. I don't need to write it manually in the provide block each and every time. So here I have updated the same test. I'm just using a useMocker here, createMock. So createMock is applied on all the dependencies of this testing module. And here we are doing the same thing, testing Pokemon service defined. Pokemon service will through a bed request passing when you are passing ID 0. When you are passing ID greater than 151, it is again bed request exception. And same here, we are mocking the mock resolved value once and we are comparing the data. Here it is returning internal server exception and we are asserting it. So nothing has changed in the tests, but we are not putting the list of providers and their createMock versions using useMocker. useMocker is actually resolving that thing for you. So this is really important video for how we do the mocking of external interface, external service, any external storage service, and how we can use createMock and useMocker.